coming today, everybody. Okay, so let's start out on our hands and knees. And we'll move our spine around. Always a great starting place. So inhaling as you look forward, lift the sitting bones. And exhale, round. Push the hands down, tuck your chin. Ooh, man, see those places in the body that might be showing up. You didn't necessarily know were there until you got into your cat tilt. Move back and forth to your own rhythm. Keeping your breath full and strong. So the breath can allow the movement of those old energies to move through. When they played out, couple more rounds. And settling back to tabletop. Let's find our first downward facing dog. So go ahead and come on up. Feel free to move in this down dog in any way that feels good to just begin to wake up and warm up your body. Knees bent, alternating leg or heel presses, whatever you would like. Keep your breath full. All right, let's walk the hands back to the feet, coming to forward fold at the back of the mat. Just take a little note of what's needed here in order to take care of yourself for this early forward fold. What are the legs saying? What do they need? Glutes, the back. Wherever you are, knees bent or straight, see if you can just let your head hang and release. Maybe you get a little bit of traction there. All right, let's bend the knees, walk the hands forward, coming back to downward facing dog. And let's go ahead and shift forward into plank from here. And lower to the floor. We'll come up into Sphinx pose, settling into the heart, a little gentle pull back in the forearms and shoulders and hands. Pressing the pubis down. Try to keep the mid, upper back and shoulders kind of soft. And sometimes we make an effort to pull back isometrically in the forearms, and we end up rounding into the back anyway. So if you keep the heart soft, gently pull the shoulder heads back and try not to let the back puff up in response to that. And then go ahead and come down. Take your hands into a clasp behind you. We'll take Shalabhasana here. And lift up. Reach back through the hands. Working those back muscles to lift the torso. All right, and hands to the floor. Press back up to tabletop. Back to down dog. All right, let's lift the right leg, bend the knee, open up through the hip, keeping shoulders square to the floor. And then release the right foot down, lift the left leg, same thing, bending the knee. Opening that knee out to the side, lifting the leg up, but trying to keep the torso looking pretty squarely at your mat. And set your left foot down. Walk your hands back to your feet, back to forward fold. See how this one is. Just taking a moment. Knees bent or straight. And then let's come up to skier. Bring the hands up onto the knees as you lift your head. Waking the legs up a little bit. So just sit back a little bit. You can take your arms out in front just for some counterbalance, but just see if you can kind of sit back and down. Try to get your knees as far behind your toes as you can. And then dropping the hands to the floor, come back to forward fold. Hands can be on your shins or your ankles as well. So wherever you need to have them, back to your forward fold. Bend the knees again, walk the hands forward back to downward facing dog. And just take a moment in your down dog to kind of lift your shoulder heads up, bend your knees, and push your hips back. So try to keep the shoulders lifted as you move your hips back. And then try to keep the upper body as it is and see if you can start to root the heels toward the floor to straighten the legs. Get some calf stretch there. Maybe you can even pick the toes up off of the floor. And then we'll shift forward, coming back into a plank pose. So in your plank, just separate your feet a little bit, and then roll to the outer edge of your left foot, the inner edge of the right foot. So your upper body is supporting all your weight, but you're in a twist. And then we'll roll the feet 180 degrees onto the outer edge of the right foot, inner edge of the left foot. A little bit of strength in the abdomen there. Back to your plank and lower to the floor. Cobra pose this time. It can be very low, it can be up higher, whatever feels good to you. And then we'll lower down, press back up to tabletop. And curl your toes under, but sit back toward puppy pose. So you can wiggle your fingers forward so the sitting bones don't quite come back to the heels. Get a little more stretch down into your sides. And back up to tabletop. Back up to down dog. And back to forward fold. So walk the hands back. Bowing toward the legs again. See how it is at this point. Bend the knees. Coming back up to skier. Hands up on the knees. This time we'll take chair pose. So slowly bring the arms up alongside of the ears. Move your seat back, pull your belly in and up, work your glute muscles, and come on up to standing. As you come up to standing, take a hold of your left wrist and tip yourself to the right. And back up to standing, take a hold of your right wrist, tip yourself to the left. And back upright. All right, release the arms down. Let's take a wide stance on the mat. So turn the toes out and the heels in and come right into a goddess stance here. And then just give yourself a little shift from side to side. And then keeping your goddess legs, take the hands off of the legs, get a little more upright in your torso. Take the arms out, palms down, and then turn the palms up, and then turn them down. Turn them up, and then turn them all the way back as far as you can, internally rotating the shoulders. And then turn them up, kind of exaggerate that external rotation. And then turn them back, and up. And then take your arms up and over your head and come up to star pose. And then make your feet parallel and come forward to prasarita. So bowing in, got that nice wide stance in the feet. Lift your torso so you're somewhat parallel to the floor, and then we'll twist. So take your right hand to the floor under the heart. Turn 90 degrees with the torso to the left, taking the left arm up into a wingspan. And then release. Left hand to the floor. Let's take the right arm up. Turn and look to the right. Trying to keep your pelvis square to the floor. And releasing both hands down to the floor. Now bend your knees. We're going to flip the feet 90 degrees to the right to find lunge. So give yourself a little flip that direction, finding your lunge legs, and then come on up to crescent lunge. Picking your arms up, finding your pose. Feeling into those legs a little bit. And then sweep the hands down to the floor inside of that foot. And we'll spin the feet 180 degrees the other way. Fine tune your foundation here so that you can come up to crescent lunge, facing the other direction. Feeling into the legs. And then let's bring the hands back to the floor inside the left foot. Spin your feet back to a wide-legged parallel position. And bow forward again. Maybe the hands walk back through the legs a little bit, and you get a little deeper into your wide-legged forward bend here. Breathing, engaging the leg muscles while you walk your hands back through the legs. And then walk the hands forward, bend the knees, turn your feet another 90 degrees to the right, coming back into your lunge, and step back to downward facing dog. Let's shift forward into plank. Go ahead and lower down to the mat. And then we'll take a cobra pose. And back to downward facing dog. Set your knees down on your mat. Set your knees wide. Big toes can touch. And now sit back in a full child's pose. Letting your sitting bones release to the heels. Arms out in front in pranam. So keeping the elbows lifted so there's still a little bit of work to open the shoulders. Hands can be as wide as your mat. And then lifting the bottom up. Let's go ahead and set the elbows down on the floor. Walk your knees back into about a hip distance width. And then sit back in a puppy pose and take your hands back behind your head. We're getting whatever kind of opening we might get here in the side ribs, the shoulders. Have a sense of some weight in the sitting bones. If you're really not feeling too much in your sides or your shoulders, you can walk your elbows forward a little bit. And then bring your forearms down to the floor and come back up onto your elbows. We're going to do the same pose, and we're going to put a block between the hands. So just take your time to find a block. And we'll come back to our kind of dolphin setup here. Taking the block horizontally between the hands, elbows again at your shoulder distance, and then sitting back again. And once you're sitting back, take the block back behind the head. Just see what this affords your upper back, space between the shoulder blades. You let the thumbs come a little closer to the shoulder blades there. All right, and then release. Just set the hands down. Shift yourself up and forward, and you can set the block aside. Let's come back up to tabletop. Come back up to downward facing dog. Let's lift the right leg, bending the knee again, opening up through the hip. Trying to keep the chest and shoulders square to the floor again. On your exhale, go ahead and sweep your right foot forward. Find that lunge again. Come back up to crescent lunge. Spin the back foot down to the floor and find your way into warrior two. Now we're going to take the left hand and bring it forward. Bring both hands together out in front of you as you're looking directly out over your right thigh. And then you're going to take your right arm straight out to the side, turn the palm up. Pull that right shoulder blade in toward the spine and down the back a little bit. And then take both arms up alongside of the ears as you look forward. Your hips are a little more square with that front leg. And then bring the hands to the floor. Step back to downward dog. Let's take a vinyasa. If it would please you, shift forward into plank, lower down. Find your back bend. And back up to down dog. Let's lift the left leg. Bend the knee, opening up through the hip. Really making that effort to square the shoulders as you lift that leg. On your exhale, sweep your left foot forward. Find your lunge legs, come on up to crescent lunge. All right, now let's go ahead and spin the back foot down. Find your way to warrior two. Here's the classic setup. Even in your classic setup for warrior two, you're still trying to turn your hips a little bit more toward your front leg, even though your torso is pretty much looking straight forward. And the head turns to look out over those front fingertips. Now bring the right arm all the way around and out in front of you. Right over that left thigh, bring the hands together. Keep your right arm where it is, take your left arm out to the left, about 90 degrees, turn the palm up. Pull that left shoulder blade in toward the spine, down the back. Take both arms up alongside of the ears. And release, hands to the floor, step back to down dog. Set your knees down on your mat and point your feet. And then come up to a vertical torso for a moment. We're going to do a little half camel while we're here. So sit back about halfway. Take your left hand to your left heel and then lift your thighs, lift your belly. Take your right arm up alongside of the ear. Lift the chest. Maybe that right hand just holds your head. If your neck is feeling a little tired or worked. And then come on up. And we'll switch sides, but we'll enter the same way. So sit back a little bit first. Right hand comes to the right heel. And then you lift your thighs, your belly, look up. Take your left arm alongside of the ear. Maybe support the head with your left hand. Try to square your chest to the ceiling. And come on back up. Release the hands to the floor. Come on back up to down dog. And just breathing. Feel a nice sense of lengthening in the spine as this nice counter pose to that back bend. All right, now let's lift that right leg again. Bend the knee. Open up through the hip a little bit. Now, if you feel like adventurous today, scoot your left hand forward a little bit and we'll flip the dog. You can spin on your left foot, set your right foot down, and come into wild thing. Take that right arm alongside the ear, and then come right back to a three-legged dog. And sweep your right foot forward now, coming back into your lunge. And then we'll set up for side angle here. So spin the back foot down, right forearm or elbow on the thigh, taking the left arm up for Parshva Konasana. I'm just feeling that. Roll the shoulders back. You can use the arm on the leg to get yourself a little bit more opening in the hips, a little more twisting of the torso. Now let's drop the right hand to the floor inside of the leg and take the left arm back behind you. Maybe the left hand on the top of the right thigh. Rolling that shoulder back. Good, and then release your left arm, bringing the hand to the floor inside the foot. Pick up your back heel and step back to down dog. All right, let's see what happens on the other side. So lift the left leg, bend the knee, open up through the hip. You can stay here, or if you feel adventurous, walk your right hand forward. And then we're gonna flip the dog. So rotate on that right foot, set your left foot down, bring your left arm alongside of the ear. And then come back to your three-legged dog as you lift up that left leg. And then sweep it forward into your lunge legs and set up for side angle stretch over your left leg. Breathing. Using the elbow against the leg to turn the heart a little more open. And then maybe that left hand drops to the floor inside of the foot and the right arm finds its way around back behind you, maybe the top of the left thigh, rolling that right shoulder back. And then release, bringing the hands to the floor, step back to downward dog. Shift forward into a plank if you want to take a vinyasa here. Go ahead and come through it. Ending up in your down dog. Then walking the hands back to the feet. Uttanasana, forward fold. Hang out with this. See where you're landing here. How are your legs feeling at this point? All right, let's find half forward fold. So inhale, lengthen halfway forward. Think about your whole spine getting longer. So it's like you're pressing back through your sit bones and forward through the crown of your head. And then keeping all that length in the spine, can you bow forward and come a little bit more deeply into your Uttanasana. Breathing. Not forcing the head or the neck. Now bending the knees, just bring the hands up onto your knees. Coming up to skier pose, so you just bring your spine into a more neutral position here. And then come on up to standing. All right, we're gonna go to the wall and do a standing thigh stretch, so find your way. Just to have some place to put your hand here. And then we'll bend the outer leg, whatever that is for you, take a hold of that foot. Just go ahead and press the foot back into the hand as the leg lifts up a little bit. And then draw your tailbone down strongly. See if you can bring your right heel in a little closer to the hip without that right knee going out. And then get really tall. Push down into your standing foot and pull your tailbone underneath yourself as you work that thigh stretch. And then go ahead and release it. And we'll switch sides. So go ahead and switch yourself around, take a hold of the other foot. Spread the toes, press the foot back into the hand. Then maybe move that thigh back. Try not to let your torso tip forward in response to that. Root the tailbone down, just see how that feels as you really engage those muscles. Hamstrings, thighs, glutes, abdomen. And then see if you can bring the heel in a little bit closer to the outer hip. And then fine tune that. So press down more fully into your right foot and get taller and pull your tailbone a little more underneath you. Really engaging that thigh stretch. All right, and then release the foot. Great, so let's find our way back to the mat, and we're going to come right back to downward facing dog. So nothing special to get there. Just go ahead and bend your knees and find your pose. All right, so we're going to do a little bit of lizard work here. So lift the right leg just to get momentum. On your exhale, bring it forward into a low lunge. Set the back knee down. And let's wiggle that right foot out to the right. Then you can simply stay here, or if you have blocks handy and you want to use them, feel free to come down onto the forearms here. Just getting a little bit deeper into your pose. A little deeper into the hips. Now from here, we're going to twist to the right and maybe take a thigh stretch here as well. So maybe your elbow stays up on a block and you turn right. You could just simply reach your right arm back behind you, parallel to the floor. You could keep your right hand on your right thigh. Or if it's available, bend your left leg. See if you can reach for your left foot with your right hand and bring the heel in. It's a whole different thing when you're twisting and your knee is in a fixed position than when we're standing. But we wanted to have a little bit of a warm-up there before we went into this deeper variation here. And then we'll release. All right, let's go ahead and come on back to downward dog between sides. And lift your left leg, bring your left foot forward, setting the back knee down for a low lunge. And wiggle that left foot out to the left, so the hands are inside of the foot, and you could stay up here on the hands, depending on how this feels in the hips. A lot of this has to do with the amount of distance you have between your front foot and your back knee. So see where you can find a place that feels doable, and if you'd like to come down further, feel free to grab a block for yourself, come down to the forearms, and settle into your hips a little bit. All right, now we're gonna start twisting to the left. So wherever you have your right arm, maybe you keep your elbow up on a block, maybe you have just your hand on the floor, and then turn yourself to the left. You can have the left hand on the leg. You can reach it back behind you, parallel to the floor with the palm turned up. Or if you'd like, bend your right leg. See if you can take a hold of the foot with your left hand and bring that heel in a little closer to your tailbone. And just breathe into that. Ooh, that's a mighty twist. All right, and then we'll release. Come back to tabletop. Let's take a down dog, just to lengthen out the spine. All right, walk your hands back to your feet. And we're going to find our way into a squat now. So you can either take yourself to a wall, you can sit up on a block if you like, or you can just squat in midair. Always good to have a little bit of height under the heels if you know your heels do not come to the floor when you come into a squat. So find what works best for you, and then go ahead and settle in. There you go. Good. So see if you can bring your elbows inside of your legs and give yourself a little bit of a hug, legs into the outer arms as the arms press gently back out into the inner legs. Finding a sense of a weight hanging at the end of the tailbone, so there's a sense of height in the spine here. All right, let's release the hands to the floor, lift the hips coming into a forward fold. And if you have a blanket, pull it out from under the heels and bring it out in front of you. And just step on it with your big toe mounds so that your heels are lower and the upper part of the foot is elevated. And then come into your forward fold here. Now, if it works for you, press your big toe mounds down into the blanket and pick your toes up. If you don't have a blanket, don't worry about it. You could do Padahastasana, which is to slide your hands underneath your feet. Pick your toes up. Try not to lean all the weight into the heels. So there's actually a little bit of weight in your big toe mounds as you're bowing forward. And then let's bend the knees, slide the hands out or the blanket out from under the feet. Come up to skier, give yourself a nice bit of length in the spine, and then come on up to standing. Okay, so we're going to set up for triangle pose now. Let's take a wide stance with the feet. And we'll open the right foot to the right. Take your left foot forward. Square the hips to the right leg. And we'll inhale, take the arms up. Exhale, reach out forward and down. And open up your triangle stance. So do your best in your triangle to turn your hips more toward the floor as you twist and open your torso. I think that's been a theme for today. All right, now let's bring the left hand down to the floor. We're going to shorten our stance and set up for revolved triangle. So bend into that right knee and bring your back foot forward. You want to turn the back foot in a little bit more because you don't want to put any pressure on that back knee. So now you want to be able to square your hips pretty much to the floor. Now, you could stay here just keeping the left hand on the floor, right hand to the hip, and just press the hip back a little bit with the hand. Perfectly fine place to be. Or scoot your left hand closer to your right foot, turn your torso to the right, and take your right arm up for full revolved triangle. So finding your variation. And then bringing both hands down to the floor. Now we're going to step the left foot back into a lunge and set your left knee down on the floor. We're going to find our way into pigeon prep here. So just wiggle your right foot over to the left and find your way into your pigeon here. And then go ahead and come forward. Feel into the hips. If you need any support, if you feel like you're not quite sitting high enough, you need a little bit of lift under the right buttock, feel to grab your block or a blanket. All right, and then coming back up, we'll step to downward dog from here. And then for the first time today, hop or step your feet to your hands and come all the way up to standing. And we'll step wide again and do the whole thing on the other side. So stepping the feet wide, we'll set up for triangle pose over the left leg. So find your foundation, squaring your hips. Inhale, arms come up. Exhale, reach out, forward and down. Trikonasana. Same thing, just settling into it a little bit and just tweaking it. Do that Virgo thing. Find the details, little fine-tuning adjustments. Turn the hips toward the floor. Roll that right shoulder head back, turning the torso more fully open. Doesn't mean you have to turn your head anymore and put any strain in the neck or anything like that. All right, let's spin the top hand down to the floor. Shorten the stance to set up for our revolved triangle. So bring that right foot forward a little bit. Turning the toes in, make sure you have at least hip distance between your feet so that you'll be more stable. And then with the hips square to the floor, you can either just take the weight to your right hand, left hand on the hip, or scoot your right hand towards your left foot, turn left, and take your left arm up for revolved triangle. All right, and then releasing the hands to the floor. We'll step back with that right foot into a lunge and then set your right knee down on the floor, and we'll find our way into pigeon prep here. So we'll move the left foot over to the right and then bending into the leg, find your way into your pigeon. Again, if you need any little bit of support, I just put a folded blanket under my left buttock just because I know that I'm a little happier with a little support on that side. So find what you need. And clearly, if pigeon prep doesn't do it for you, feel free to find the alternative that you know does work for you. All right, and then we'll walk the hands back in. Let's find our way to down dog. Open up the spine again, get that nice sense of length. Now this time, rather than hopping the feet forward, just set your knees back down on the floor. And we're going to turn around, come onto our backs, and set up for a bridge pose. So I'm using a blanket to elevate my shoulders because my neck doesn't like bridge pose all that much, but don't feel like you have to use a blanket if you're very comfortable with it. So in your bridge, set your feet, walk the shoulder blades in toward your spine, and then go ahead and lift your hips up. You can clasp your hands underneath you and make sure that you're bearing weight comfortably on the back of the shoulders, and then go ahead and lift your hips to the place that feels appropriate for you in your bridge today. Breathe, stay up there, work your legs. All right, and then slowly lower the hips down. And just reach your arms up and over your head. You can take your feet wide into constructive rest. Let your knees rest against one another. Just let your back have a moment or two in this neutral position. And then draw your knees toward your chest for a moment. Circle your feet a little bit. And let's set the feet wide on your mat, taking your arms out into a T. We'll do some windshield wipers here, which is nice and gentle. Dropping the knees at a pace that feels really good to you. It's a way to honor yourself and where you have landed at this point in your practice. And then finding your way back to center, if you would, just grab yourself a strap. We'll do the Supta Padangusthasana series, and then we'll pretty much wrap it up. So taking the strap around your right foot, you can take your right leg up toward the ceiling, left leg down to the floor. And just take a moment to find that sense of squareness in the hips so that outer right hip crease moves away from you. Left leg is grounded, and open your right leg out to the right. And then bring the leg back to center and switch the straps into your left hand and cross that leg over, rolling onto your left hip. Oh yeah. Do your best to keep weight in your right shoulder blade. If you need to make any little fine-tuning adjustments in order to feel that for yourself, please do. And then bringing that right leg back upright. Let's step the left foot up into the strap. Take the right leg down. And we'll open the left leg out to the left. Just to help keep that right leg rooted, you can hug your right heel toward the midline. And then go ahead and bring your left leg across center, switching the straps into your right hand, and cross the leg over, rolling onto that right hip. Whew. Nice deep twist, nice deep stretch. Reins as long or as short as you'd like. Breathing into it. Stay for another moment or two here. And then bringing that leg back to center. All right, so step out of the strap. And now we're gonna take Shavasana. Super simple today. If there's anything that you'd like, noting how you feel after this practice. If you got anything going on in your back, elevate your knees. If you want a little bit more heart opening, back bending time, feel free to elevate your spine either vertically or horizontally. Whatever would feel good to you. And find your pose. All right, so if you'll just bring your awareness to your body and your breath, bringing some gentle movement back in. And then just gently Find your way back up to your seat. All right, so I send so much deep love and gratitude to all of my teachers. And I'm grateful to have all of you here on this holiday weekend. Thanks for coming to do your practice and taking care of yourself, and I hope you feel great the whole rest of the weekend. So, happy September. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.